Good afternoon and a very warm welcome to the Citizens Chat Show on Civic Space TV, streaming on YouTube. I'm your host, Judith Atim. Well, today on the show, we are asking, are Ugandans ready for the 2026 elections? Of course, we're looking at the undergoings or the happenings in our political parties. As you all know, it's a busy season and it's going to get busier. Well, by now you know that the road to 2026 elections is, of course, taking shape. Like I said, the level of activities in our various political parties is actually heightened. We're having thousands of Ugandans across the political divide showing up over the last several days, picking up and returning their expression of interest forms, which of course paves the way for their nominations for the respective elective positions they're interested in. And we've also seen newcomers and incumbents alike throwing their hats in the ring. And like it's always said, politics is a dirty game, and that ugly side of it is also showing. And we shall be talking about this as well in the show today. Joining me on the show today is an all-male panel. Pardon us, our female guest didn't show up. She got caught up a little bit, so she'll join us another time. But from my immediate left, of course, as usual, Dr. Robert Ojambo, head of the History Department at Kyambogo University. A warm welcome to the show, Dr. Ojambo.
Thank you.
Missing a couple of times, but glad to have him back. Honorable George Odongo, member of the East African Legislative Assembly. Good to have you back, Honorable.
Thank you very much, and it's good to be back.
Mr. Joseph Ochieno, political commentator and UPC Ideologue. Good afternoon, Joseph. Welcome to the show.
Good afternoon. A pleasure to be here. I must say that I was nearly about to protest about the all-male panel until you sort of explained it. But no, we recognize that the future is Congress, the future is women, but delighted to be here.
Thank you. And last but not least, of course, is retired Major Awich Paula, Director for External Relations at the NRM. He's also an advocate of the High Court. Always good to have you on the show, Major.
Thank you so much.
Today came with the tag.
Yes, I'm surprised that the congressman has not commented on the shining beauty you have today.
He always likes it. I don't know whether
he already mentioned that when we were out.
He has not said it. So here, yes, the doctor, professor says it's just true. Right from work, we are nominating, and this is a card given to directors, top managers, to participate in the activities, because we have divided ourselves into schedules. So we are going ahead.
Okay. On that note, I'd also ask you to take us through what the last several days have been for you as NRM.
What?
The last several days, this whole
Several
exercise,
days.
the expression of interest forms and so on, the picking up of this whole exercise, what is it like?
What I could comment about is the content and the form of it, what activities has been going on and the implications of what we read in it. These activities, which is climaxing now with the picking and the returning of forms, or forms of declaration of, expression of interest form, is nearly the climax, but it started way down backward. You will remember that we had election of structures, and then we had at various levels picking of forms for other positions, including LC1, and which we actually selected already. Then other various positions. Now, for those who have picked forms nationally, we are having now about 2 million people. Meaning that these are NRM, and we already have 2 million votes. That excludes their family members. That excludes their family members who in most cases support them. Of course, a few family members dissent. There are others who have a dissenting view, and it is their right. But majority by far, family tend to vote together, with that exception of dissent. Now, two is that the national competition for picking forms and contesting was so vivid that we found that 3 people died at the LC1 level, competing for it. And as I've always said, we have struggled to work for the party. It's like whenever you create a solution to something, you create a problem too. For example, if your problem is to industrialize, you can build factories, build industries, you create a problem of pollution. So we have marketed the party. Personally, as I've been with you and I've been everywhere around the country, I've done it coming to close to 2-3 years now. And I'm glad that my little input with others, including my brother here, Odongo, we are starting to yield, including even when in public shows now, unlike before, people ring and show appreciation. Now, this has only been translated into real support so that we have solved the problem of recruiting people into the party, but we have created a problem of internal management of the democracy. But would you rather stay without industrialization because you are fearing pollution? You rather industrialize and fight pollution later. In the language, it's saying that mogupe oluoro bia, meaning you don't fear to plant cassava because you fear the spear grass. That if I plant it here, spear grass may touch it. You plant and you weed. So we are planted and we are weeding. So true now, because of the massive recruitment we have done, we are now faced with challenges of internal democracy, right from the grassroots up to parliamentary level, because we still hear sentiments of some people wanting to say, I should not be competed against at parliamentary level. But that is now the challenge we have to manage in internal democracy. Now, here at the headquarters now, of course, we are now nominating members of parliament and we are nominating chairman LC5. Alone here in Chadondo Road, there's about 3,000 people. 3,000 that we are nominating for those positions alone. Remember, parliament is about 520 something, the parliament, including special interest group. So meaning direct constituency is about 500 or less. So we are here nominating about 3,000. That is good enough. Now this takes me to the point that true, we are a popular political party by Ugandans. And now this makes me question, for those who think we rig election, I have said before that the entire West Nile, the entire Choli, the entire Lao, Tessa and Karamoja, during voting, polling stations of these other parties have no agent. And yet you hear, we have declared Agago, Museveni has won by 80, by 70. I took it by 70, by 80. Now, if we were that good riggers, how comes in this district with no polling agent, we still, why wouldn't we declare Museveni 100%? We still do it. So there's honesty, there's support that we have, is being seen in this exercise. So the exercise is ongoing, it is well, it is fine, it has exposed the support for the party, and we are moving forward. How I wish other state actors could leave it to us, the body politics, the political party to manage. Because now it is clearly shown that there's no threat. Okay? So I really call upon the other actors to let us do it, because we are doing it well. They should let us do it. The other actors, police, we shall call you when we need it, when there's really insecurity. But for now, the talking that we are talking, the conversation that we're having, including with our opponents, including convincing the people, we're doing it so well. So I call upon the other actors to stay and watch. We are doing it well. So the exercise is ongoing on well. The numbers are big, good enough at this stage. It doesn't have much logistical effect on us because candidates are bringing their, at the nomination, we are allowing a nominator and a seconder, only 3. But of course, some candidates have come with a full bus of their people, but that is their business. So for a party now, we are not meeting any cost. It is the candidates. So we are still safe and good. So that is the situation.
Thank you. Very, very good background for us to start this conversation. Dr. Ojambo, Major says the ruling party, NRM, has branded itself so well, and that's why it is Uganda's most loved party, and that's why it's able to attract these big numbers. I'd like to hear what you think about this. But before that, your quick thoughts or your observations regarding this exercise, the people who are turning up, the numbers, and also the caliber, let's say. We see some very, very old, frail people also showing up to be, seeking re-election. And there are lots of questions and concerns that can't parties rein in on some of their members to at least ensure that they have people who can ably represent their constituents?
Yeah, thank you, Judith. This morning, I was giving a keynote address to the Afropal conference taking place in town there. And the beauty is that we are discussing the role of parliament in the socioeconomic development of Africa. And I was telling the members that were there that Africa, unlike other parts of the world, is very unique. We could have said that maybe what is happening in Africa is because of the colonial experience, but we remind ourselves that China and India and others were all under colonialism, Australia and Argentina and all these other places. But Africa is unique because of the many things that have been taken for granted. One of the things that has been taken for granted is to say that election is the measure of democracy. And I have told the people always that I find that very problematic. Election is just one of the ingredients of democracy. But unfortunately in Africa here, we have come to think that election is the measure of democracy. And because of that, the leaders of Africa have got an idea about it and have worked around it. And I've been telling people that dictators love election more than any other person. They love election because it gives them legitimacy in their dictatorship. And when you look at the whole of Africa before you come back home, majority of the leaders of Africa we cannot call them full-time dictators. They are hybrid. They are hybrid autocratic leaders, including very nice countries that we would talk about like Botswana. And you see some element of dictatorship. And therefore, these elections are very good at cleansing. Number two, because of unemployment and a lot of socioeconomic problems in Africa, the only place where there is a lot of jobs that are waiting for people to take is politics. I was giving an example that look at public service of Uganda. The whole of public service, policemen, teachers, the total is 376,000 people only. But to supervise those 376,000 people, you need 2 million politicians. Uganda has about 2 million politicians right now. When you move from LC1 to up there, you have just had his statistics of how many people have been nominated for only these elective positions at the top and the local government. But remember, there is LC1, there is I don't know which one, there is and so on and so forth. So you find that each village has a 9-member committee, and those 9-member committee elect another 9-member committee at the next level up to LC5, which has now more than 9. Initially there were only 9, but now they have put so many other offices, minister of this, minister of that, representative of this, and so on and so forth. So at the end of the day, that's why you find everybody is flocking. Everybody who has nothing to do is running to pick a form so that he can be elected in a position to get employed. Number 3, political parties in Africa have a very big challenge, that people don't support them because they believe in them. People support political parties in Africa because they benefit from those political parties. And that's why in every country in Africa, there is no country that the ruling party is the minority. You will not find it. Of course, that was in the US, it is possible because there is a time when the people outside government were more than the other by 2. Here it is not possible. Why? There is no separation between the ruling party and the government in most of African countries. If you go to Tanzania, you will find that CCM is the one which is running the state in Tanzania. In Uganda, it is obvious. In Kenya, they had a problem, and Ruto has struggled very hard to create a majority by creating broad-based government. I call it broad-based eating. And because of that, you find that, for example, you will not be shocked that NRM right now is attracting every candidate because it is the one that is providing food. I want to tell you that some of us who have life, when NRM leaves power, I don't see it being different from KANU in Kenya, or the party that left power in Zambia, or in Ghana, or wherever. For example, when a party leaves power, that is how it goes, because NRM right now is on the dining table. The rest of these other parties are in the bush there looking for mushrooms. They are surviving on white ants and many other things. NRM is on a buffet. They are on a buffet. They are just choosing what to eat. Who would not want to associate with such a group of people? There is nobody who can tell him, if you went to Chadondo right now and you asked people, why are you struggling so much to get an NRM ticket? They will not tell you it's because I believe in this ideology, I believe in the other ideology. They will tell you, my friend, I want to share in the national cake. Ngenda in Uganda, they say, njagala kusakira bantu bange. I want to use this opportunity to go and get food for my people, because NRM is on the buffet, and therefore nobody can go to suffer with white ants and so on. You have asked me about why is it that you are seeing everybody picking the nomination form. Number 1, it is by design. By design, you normally hear Major Awich calling his party a mass party. A mass party. And I have always, when I leave this place, I go and I've been reading, what do you mean by a mass party? So mass party means, if for those who have been in the fishing community, it is like a fishing gadget called Kokota. And the Kokota fishing gadget, when it is laid in the lake, it picks everything of a certain size, including stones. It brings out even stones. So in this Kokota-like type of politics, we do not have a good sieve that trains leaders. For example, I used to think that Chankwanzi is a leadership place where you go to learn about leadership. When you go to Chankwanzi, there is what they teach there called patriotism, but that patriotism is towards a certain government or a certain party and a certain person. So we don't have very good leadership. So because people can only know what they are going to do, many of the people who are vying for councillorship at LC5, councillorship at LC3, MP, many of them, if you gave them an interview that yes, you want this job, what are you going to do? They will tell you, I don't know, but I will learn from there. So that is one of the problems that we still have in this country. We don't have a system that prepares leaders at different levels. And for me, young people will forgive me. The first time I saw people moving from university, and picking forms to become members of parliament, I knew we had lost it. Remember, one of the districts in the east, I think Katakwi, one time brought a vacist who was preparing to go to university, and that MP had a lot of problems. I remember, and unfortunately, it was a she. She has disappeared in oblivion. So that young,
Honorable Alengot.
yes,
Prasovia.
that young person was killed because she did not even know what she was going to do. But because the father had died, people said, Honorable, the daughter, go and replace her, this person. The same thing happened in Kamuli, and right now the MP, the woman, one of the MPs in Kamuli municipality cannot go back to the municipality and walk freely among the people. They will stone her because she also went in parliament without knowing what is demanded of them. So, age, yes, it would be good. It would be good for everybody to be given an opportunity. But when you look at the work that is done in parliament, it requires some level of experience. It requires some level of expertise. It requires some level of understanding. And that's why you see out of the 530 something MPs, you will find that parliament, if you checked on record, the people who do serious work there are less than 50. And those 50 are looked at as bad people because they are the ones doing the real legislative work. The others are mobilizing how to dig graves in the village. They are mobilizing how to dig I don't know what. These are MPs. So you find a mismatch. And that's why, for example, the ones you are talking about, there are people who, under normal circumstances, you see, for us to do the work we do, you must be of sound health. When you get a job anywhere in public service, one of the first thing you do is to go to the clinic and they find out that you are of sound health. MP, I have discovered that it is not the case. It is not the case because I saw the other day an MP being nominated by Major Witch in a car. The man did not know even what was taking place. In fact, they were giving him the form. He was waving to the people and telling them bye-bye. And when they gave him the thing, he didn't even know what it was. But there he is. He's going to be the MP of those people. Now, somebody is going to say, but it is okay. It gives a chance to all people. It gives a chance. It does not segregate. I find that very, very funny because the job of a honorable member of parliament is one of the very, very important job because these are people who do the scrutiny, they do the legislation, they do appropriation, and therefore they must be of sound mind. As I end, NRM is chest thumping that for them they look more prepared than others. NRM and other ruling parties in Africa are very insincere. They are very, very insincere. And I still want to use the same analogy that I normally say. Unfortunately, in Africa, not only in Uganda, NRM being one of them, and I've seen parties coming here to learn from them, there is no way you can chest thumb with a minority. You are fighting with a minority child, the one whom you have not allowed to eat, and you say, not even an adult, you are an adult of 80 kilograms, but you are fighting with a minority child, whom you have malnourished. You have not allowed to move around, you have not allowed to open up branches, you have been caning them all over the place, you don't want them to do anything. Now you are chest thumping. For you have been seated on a buffet eating. You are fattened with the huge muscles, and when you are now boxing them and they are falling down, you start chest thumping. In fact, this is one of the greatest insincerity that we have ever had in this country. I end with a small story. There was a man in one of these villages who deceived that he had been in Tanzania. And he told his members that while there, he learned that there is some misfortune that is going to happen to their cows. And therefore, he advised that everybody should cut out the tongues of their cows. And to show example, he painted the mouth of his cow, and it looked like he had cut off the tongue. The people saw and said, this thing may be true. They went and cut out the tongues of their cows, and within 2 hours, all the cows had died. And he was the only man who remained with the cows. But this man later lived a very miserable life because he was the only person in the village with the cows. So anybody who needed a cow had to go and steal it from his place. 2, people stopped taking milk because they were not used to it. So he would milk his cows and nobody would buy his milk. So he would pour the milk. What I am saying, you cannot be the only strong man in the village. You want other strong men, other strong people to live with so that you can brag and say, I have more cows more than the other one. In this instance, where the NRM thinks that for them they can remain alone here, they are going to remain alone, but they will never enjoy.
Thank you, Dr. Ojambo. George, let me come to you. Major says your party, the ruling party, is popular, but Ojambo here says it is popular because it's serving a buffet that no one else is serving elsewhere. What do you think is actually making NRM appealing? Is it that it is the material or opportunities that it has to offer? Or do people genuinely believe in the ideals of the parties? Does it speak to their own values?
You see, in my village, there is a saying that a fattened bull sells itself. You don't need to go around, you know. People will see a fattened bull and they will say, that's the one I want. So you see, the party has been there and has been serving the people for a long time. And indeed, if the people were disappointed by the performance of this party that badly, there would have been an overt demonstration of that frustration by, first of all, not seeking political office. Because we are talking about just political office, providing leadership. And as Major has told you, we are at 2 million right now of people who want to provide leadership, party leadership. So it's a clear demonstration. At times I think that we speak too much English. And because we speak too much English, we tend to paint some of the issues in very rosy language. But to an ordinary citizen, I think there are some specific boxes that they look at, that they tick. And that forms the basis of their decision making. So for an ordinary citizen in the village who actually form the bulwark of the membership of the National Resistance Movement, there are certain key areas that the party has scored very, very highly, that they feel are very fundamental. And perhaps that tilts the balance in the favor of the party when it comes to the choices that they make. So I want to think that the people are making an informed decision based on the record of performance of the political party. And indeed, as Major Which said earlier on, that you see, every political organization has its own challenges. The NRM has its own challenges, and it's our business. And I've said it on this forum a number of times that it's our business to make sure that we deal with the internal weaknesses and challenges that the political organization is facing. But that should not cloud the scores of the party and why people, and perhaps that's why people make the decisions to support the National Resistance Movement. So I want to think that it's on the basis of their of the performance of the party, on what the people have experienced, and what the people see as the future. That's why, you know, the bulk of the population is making a decision to go with the national resistance movement. But that said, yes, there are challenges with our political organizations, the whole landscape of political parties in the country. Our political parties have not matured, and it's partly due to the operating environment, as earlier on cited, that we seem to have gone into a multi-party political system without being multi-partists ourselves, both as citizens but also as leaders. And for that reason, we have not provided the sufficient support for the growth of political organizations. All of them operate as special purpose vehicles, SPVs. They are activated very, very much at the time when everyone is seeking, you know, a party ticket to run. So that's when the parties are really at their best, because at that point they want to leverage on their positions as registered political organizations for purposes of giving people identity. So everyone is running to NUP because they want to have a NUP party ticket, because perhaps NUP is very strong in an area where I am. So everybody is running for NRM because they know NRM is very, very strong in an area where I am. They go there, but not essentially because as political organizations, we have deliberately structured ourselves and functioned as political organizations that are there to mobilize, to articulate our party positions, party policies, our visions, and be able to convince people from that ideological position. So if you look at, if you would wish to audit all these political organizations in terms of their policies, in terms of their ideological positions, in terms of their internal governance systems, you are certainly going to find that all of them are lacking in one way or the other. And that's not good for the country, because for as long as we have in the constitution that we are going to have governments that are built around political parties, then we must make those political parties very, very strong and be able to articulate positions that allow our people to organize around them in an informed way. I have not had, in spite of the challenges that Ojambo has been talking about, I have not even had a day when, say, for example, NUP or DP or UPC has said, you know, we are calling for maybe like a conference or a workshop or something like that, where we are going to have a critique of some of these flagship poverty eradication policies that the NRM is pursuing. For example, PDM. Okay, PDM is our flagship program now for eradication of poverty. And you have seen the president has been moving around the country, you know, mobilizing people on this 4-acre model and so on and so forth. But we have not had a strong policy position where, say, for example, NUP has carried out, or DP or UPC has carried out an analysis, you know, perhaps ask the likes of Dr. Ojambo and the other social scientists to go and do a research and produce a policy paper, and then on its basis align that policy paper to their vision and ideological orientation and poke holes on how it is being implemented. That does not require a public rally, and nobody has stopped any of these political organizations from doing that. They even have the resources to do that, because the resources are coming through government, through under the Political Organizations Act. All these political parties are in one way or the other supported through the Electoral Commission. They receive some little money that they use for such things. We have not had that, essentially because the way these political parties are conceived, I always say that political organizations that are formed out of frustration from certain frustration from, say, how the NRM is performing, sometimes tend to take an activist, sometimes take the form of activism, which is okay, but they now completely forget that the moment we decided that we are forming a political organization, it comes with it greater responsibilities. One, in terms of structure. The other thing is being able to articulate a grounded vision for the country and be able to sell it in the circumstances. So this really is, for me, is the landscape that we are operating in, and it is not good for the country. I know that for me, as a member of NRM, we have the numbers, so on and so forth, but I think that the country is much bigger than just political organizations. We should all be in a situation where we build capabilities across, so that the alternatives can still function very well for the country.
Okay, thank you, George. Joseph, let me come to you. Of course, I'd still like to hear your quick thoughts about the ongoing exercise that's taking place in NRM, NUP, and generally whatever else is happening in other political camps. But also, I'd like to know if NRM says it is popular, it is loved by everyone, and we hear also the opposition say otherwise. I'd like to know your thoughts regarding the extent to which you think the opposition, the political environment, the prevailing political environment allows the opposition to actually sell themselves to Ugandans, especially at the grassroots.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and it's very interesting listening to my good brother Paula giving the state of the NRA from Chad on the road in a very fantastic way. And I also want to agree with him that predominantly Comrade Which has been massively to your credit, that you, if your leaders, some of whom I don't really respect, but many of whom I regard quite highly, if they care to listen, that you've genuinely helped amongst some of your colleagues with, again, as Robert has said, in the more recent times, the last 2 or 3 years, helped to give a sense of direction to the political organization that you represent. But I still fundamentally disagree with the founding values of that organization. And then to listen, of course, to Dr. Ojambo, I concur predominantly. And George put together, NRA is not a mass party. NRA is not a political party. When it's convenient, Which will tell you that they're a movement and they're not a political party, and the founding principles around it is very predominant, very much about that. It's not surprising that we have huge contradictions when it comes to the questions of internal democracy, particularly when we want to try and apply it from a pluralist perspective. But number two, purely from a historical perspective, a mass party is a grassroots, massively popularly driven organization that would have been founded from the grievances you could take back maybe to Uganda National Congress of the 50s, and grievances across the country. NRA is not. NRA was came out of a political rejection of Mr. Museveni in Nyabushozi as a political party in a competitive way. went and set themselves in Luweero. For the 4 years these guys were in Luweero, I was in Kampala predominantly. And I was a young, fairly well-alert student of sound mind. I know how irrelevant NRM was in Ankole. I also know how irrelevant in public opinion it was in Kampala, except as a rebellion and a rebel movement. If then, as a mass political party or organization should be, then it should have been a mass political organization in Uganda. As of today, I don't see any massive evidence that many Baganda were rooted around the so-called then liberation struggles and significant members and founding members of this organization. In any case, it was a military thing. I don't know how many Baganda generals are there who are offsprings of NRA. Katumba Wamala was not, he was already an establishing operational person. So this mass thing is neither here nor there. Granted, at the moment, NRA is the predominant national political organization from that perspective. But so if we want to give definitions on the basis of foundations and roots and relationship, it's not. So the numbers at the moment is numbers by default. But beyond that, NRA gets its current position by virtue of what Dr. Ojambo said, that it's not good to chest thump when you come in a big man with a big chest, and then you go ahead and break people's back, ties their back, impoverish them, hang them like you hang them, particularly Lang Acholi, over 20 years in concentration camps, stamp over the country, eat money, eat power, eat positions, train yourselves, go ahead, go around Africa, claim that you're Pan-Africanist, make friends with dubious friends in London and Washington, and then after you've broken their backs, after 20 years, you come back and you want them to, the ordinary Ugandans, to run at your pace, to dine at your pace, to put on the suits that you put on at the same level, and therefore to eat. By then, children who were born out of 16-year-olds were now already grandmothers of themselves in concentration camps, and you want to compare with them, you as we're going to Harvard. You can't compare. So that is the NRA political organization reality at the moment. The reason I give that background is that I know I am the political leader here. I visit this country, across the country. I can tell you that the average NRA people in Zombo are extremely, desperately poor, ignorantly desperate and poor. They're in NRA because they want to play calm. Many of them, including in Ajumani, around Moses Ali's place. I know many of them in Achola Nagago, including some of the neighbors of some of my colleagues here. I know some in Karamoja, including conversations that people do take place. And I also know those in Tororo. So people in NRA, because they've got to be in NRA, they had been beaten. I know people in Padola who told me that, Joseph, we saw what happened in northern Uganda. We saw when Museveni was fighting with Lakwena here. We saw how people were brutalized and we saw how people were buried. People just got tired. You simply say, almost like some mini surrender. Let's keep going. Let's try and wait for heaven and earth to come. That's sort of the unfortunate reality that we face today. But that said, in political reality, about what has happened in the last few weeks, NRA has and can commend itself that it really had a genuine spray of people going to Chad on the road. So that is true because many of those were not charged. But those people were going there on the basis of the foundation that I told you. I have met within the last 1 week up to 3 different people who would have been candidates in interested positions, in these positions, including members of parliament. And in all cases, just like Dr. Ojambo said, people are going there because that if you want to go to parliament, the guarantee is to take an NRA ticket. If you want to go to parliament and you want a political organization that will sponsor you, the answer is NRA. And if you want to try your luck in politics and you're not going to be beaten enough, the way is to go to NRA and sometimes wait and hope that when Museveni reaches Moses Ali's age, they will have a discussion and then jump in the same car and move for a retreat somewhere in Koboko or perhaps this time in Rakitura, something like that. And then in such a time, you will have new emergent leaders like George, like Comrade Awich, and I hope maybe by then I will have convinced Dr. Ojambo that there is an interest in joining politics and mainstreaming some of our theories to practice in political practice rather than theory in a way. That is the situation. Now, for me, other political parties, George, Uganda People's Congress is a political party rooted on ideology, rooted on a nationalist social grievance, a coherent political party, and it is a political party. It translated its convictions and values into government with the mandate of the people and delivered on a manifesto and a program in the first administration, the second administration. Fast forward to today, that political party is like that fantastic stuff down there. It's coherent in terms of what it represents. The difference is, where I totally agree with you, Dr. Ojambo, we do not have an official leader. So when George quite rightly asks, where are political leaders to critique PDM? In UPC's case, the person who's dancing at the national headquarters is Jim McKenna. Until the other week, maybe fair enough, the last eight months, the state president that used to come from the Uganda House, something that I tried to help, weekly press statements to try and say, Jim would go ahead, they would come ahead and say, UPC asks NRM, if you want to beat people in Chadondo, beat them, but don't beat them as hard, kind of stuff. Those used to be the statements until 10 months ago. Of course, right now, so if that was what was happening until 10 months ago, how would you expect a critique of this thing? Now, granted, today, my brother, Jim McKenna's position, for the purposes of where he is doing what he's doing. But Jimmy is not the leader of UPC. Now, institutionally, Court of Appeal rules against you in a political party. Supreme Court rules against you. You, Simon Biamakama, you are the chairperson of the Electoral Commission and a retired judge. And you endorse that as business as usual, nationally. And Comrade Awich, you're a lawyer, and people just thump. It is terrible. And this, for people who opted, by the way, we opted instead of going to the bush, because I say, you guys, UPC, George, I've said it. I said this before. Had some of us opted to fight Museveni militarily in the 80s and 90s, had we opted to fight Museveni militarily, because this guy is boss, all people were defeated. No. Had we in the UPC elected to fight Museveni militarily, I would be a general. I would possibly be dead, but definitely NRA would not be in power. The only thing is we chose, because we loved Uganda more, and we said, let's find a middle ground. Let's stick to political, legal, and diplomatic. And so therefore, I find it sometimes irritating that those of us who thought we should fight politically, diplomatically, and then come and fight, sort out legally, and then hope that some sane judicial system in Kampala is going to grant justice to children of Bukchoro, justice to people of Mukura, and justice maybe to some of us who opt, instead of going to the bush to break people's necks using foreign interest, that we present ourselves in civil courts. That hasn't happened. So politically, the UPC political party has got absolute capacity and organizational systems and experience, indeed, of critiquing government. And there, George, I agree with you. About more recent political parties, I don't know. But UPC doesn't have the capacity because its head is being locked by NRA, and deliberately locked. That is cowardice. It's cowardice, it's criminality. And I think that for other political parties, I can't comment. But I also get generally quite frustrated. But we advise, I can tell you, because for me, I'm both a representative of UPC, I do some of this work, but I also hope that I try to mentor young people across the political divide. And the young guys in young NRA, I'll have chats with you to try and guide, because we want to build a nation together. And so sometimes I want some of our colleagues in other political organizations that maybe we need to do a lot more, but still I want to stick to George. There's a point that George raises, but unfortunately that point is best done when there is a sense of civility, where You bring in PDM, and you don't bring in PDM in a cowardly way in which Museveni did. You have a policy proposal. Like PDM would have been a conversation which you guys at your party level. Last October, you should have said, maybe 2 years, that look, if we win the next election, this poverty thing, we shall deal with it like this. So over a period of time, you have discussion, including you guys, you go to seminars and you have conversations with it. So that by the time, election time, you see, this is our manifesto commitment that if we win elections, we shall have PDM. But where PDM comes in the middle of parliament, including this thing about breaking people's necks in marching in the prison, these are fundamental legislative things that really should be manifesto commitments rather than something for which Mr. Museveni wakes up in the morning, his son gets annoyed because he was at night watching girls on X, and then he decides that look, we're going to be trying civilians in military courts, and then by 1 week we give it 100 million Uganda shillings to legislators. I agree with Dr. Ojambo. I don't know where these guys get their conscience from, and the law has been passed. That is where we are. Unfortunately, so therefore, it gives us a very irrepresentative face of politics. NRA is playing advantage for the reasons that I've given. Other political players, political parties, are really not in the right places, partly because of the protesters beating up. But I think maybe, Judith, we shall be revisiting this in the next 3-4 months after nominations and see how parties are panning up. But this business of nominations in the villages, I can tell you, it is really because the thing has been so fundamentally monetized that is the way to go is to go to politics for money. And I told Dr. Ojambo, very irritating. Some guys come to you, I want to go to parliament, and you ask, what have you done in life? What was your other academic work? What's your other academic work? Or what did you do in public work and things like that? And the experience is not one which can be a net contribution to scrutiny and other things. But anyway, since it's an introductory remark, I hope that we shall be getting home somewhere.
Well, thank you very much, Joseph. It's time for us to take a break. And then when we return, I would like us to, of course, now go into the heart of the discussion of, are Ugandans actually ready for the 2026 elections? And of course, we'll be looking at a number of indicators, including the political awareness and education. Do citizens understand their rights, their responsibilities, and the electoral process? We'd also look at just how free and fair our electoral environment is, among others. That's after the break.
Digital rights are those human rights and legal rights that allow individuals to access, use, create, and publish digital media, or to access and use computers, other electronic devices, and telecommunication networks. Digital rights include a right to freedom of expression, information and communication through technology, a right to privacy and data protection, a right to credit for personal works, a right to universal and equal digital access, a right to identity, a right to anonymity, a right to be forgotten, and a right for protection of minors, among others. The state's digital rights are frequently violated through various unfair actions, for example, blockage of websites and social networks, theft of credentials, unauthorized use of people's data for personal gain, privacy intrusion, online censorship, arrests and intimidation of online users, internet blockages, and the proliferation of laws and regulations that undermine the potential of technology to drive social, economic, and political development worldwide. It is hence every citizen's responsibility to respect rights of other digital users and to speak out or report to the responsible parties when one's rights are violated.
Welcome back from the break, and we're glad that you're still with us here on the Citizens Chat Show. Before we went into the break, of course, we were still looking at the issues, the contestations within our political parties, and of course, how things can get better for us as a country. But before we proceed to the heart of our conversations, which is basically assessing the readiness of Ugandans for the upcoming elections, Major, I'll give you the mic to just respond very quickly to the submissions by your colleagues, and then we move and assess the indicators that I mentioned earlier. Do citizens understand their rights, their responsibilities, and the electoral process as we head into the elections? Is the political and the electoral environment free and fair? Are our democratic institutions functional enough? Do citizens enjoy their freedoms? Just how actively are citizens involved in the political process, and so on? That's after you, Major.
Thank you so much. I will go bullet point to respond to what my colleagues have raised. I think in response to how one of our aspirants in the name of Jerome Moses Ali was seen, somebody was urging whether we as a party could make some decisions about who actually expresses interest. Well, I think the issue of age limit was discussed and disposed of in the Constitution. So it is a constitutional matter, we can't revisit it as a party. But also health, especially mental health, it's difficult. It is good for somebody to raise emotion. You know, a party will not move on, it's difficult for a party to move on emotion of its own. Just like a court cannot move on emotion of its own, somebody has to move court. The exceptional situation where courts move on emotion of its own is on contempt. If you become contemptuous to the court can move. So in this case, if somebody had a mental health matter, not a physical health, physical inabilities can easily be turned as inability, and there are provisions for disabled people in parliament. They're even given people to help them to be in parliament, help us. They're even paid. But mental health is a condition which doesn't warrant somebody to be there. But in this case, if somebody feels one of our aspirants has a mental problem, then you have to move the party. So there are grounds for appealing on that. There are grounds for petitioning that, and we wait to hear.
So not on physical health.
Not physical health. Physical disability, which can be treated tomorrow and you heal. How would you stop somebody for that? But even if it was disability.
This is cognitive. This is something cognitive.
Yes. So, but on mental health, somebody has to move us. We can't move on our emotion of ourselves. Now, is election a measure of democracy? The doctor was saying that African countries are following that, maybe Uganda. But as NRM, for a long time we had tried to forge a democracy called the movement democratic system. And it was you, the same people, who came hard on us, said, no, freedom of association, multi-party, election. What? We said, fine, here it is. Here it is. But originally, we for a long time, we advocated for an African democratic system, including movement democratic system. We were saying, can we think around? Can we think around? They said, no, freedom of association. We multi-party. Here we are. If we are going back to what the movement was thinking, let's discuss. Is it wrong to join NRM to eat? Because there was also thinking that we join to eat. Yes. Because for us as a party, we actually think that with all the English that Honorable Odongo referred to, we think the minimum point is that we should be a party able to provide the basic needs of our people. And this includes eating. Therefore, if the majority Ugandans, through our multi-policies, including PDM or our budget that we do, through the many interventions, if it brings food on the table and they join us for eating, we plead guilty. We're happy. But if you are eating, the definition of your eating is not that eating, coming to extract something out of it. We don't have that. We are legitimate and we want to provide eating to everybody, for which we are happy if they join us for eating. What is it about the NRM mass party? Allow us to explain a mass party. I think we could explain, we still believe as NRM we're a mass party. No requirement for paying membership. All you have to agree is that agree with the ideology, with your thinking, and you are there. Don't pay membership. Look at it from a party like the Communist Party of China. China has about 1.5 billion, but only 90 million people are members of that party. So 90 million are ruling the other 1.4 billion people. And some people in China die applying to be a member of the Communist Party. For us, we're saying no, it is a mass party. Come in. So that is our concept of massness. If your concept of massness of a party is another one, maybe that is a UPC definition of massness.
Science, but anyway,
for us, it is a mass party. We welcome people as long as you're willing to work with us. And even if you come with bad intention, for example, infiltration, as some people say, we have an inbuilt system to check you up. We have code of conduct, which we said, now you have come. These are do's and do nots, and it is attached to our constitution. Then you are with us. So we are as opposed to some parties like in China, as I said, 1.5 billion Chinese, but only 90 million people. So the 90 million are ruling 1.4 billion, and you die applying to join the party. Some people die without succeeding. So that is what we mean by mass party. There's also a comment about, should we give ground on health to MPs? I think I've already answered that. Other parties, now you're saying that NRM is a giant and is going to fight with a malnourished person, and that is unfair. This is about a level ground, if I may say. But doctor, on the contrary, the other parties are actually saying they're stronger than us. So who is this malnourished person? If you ask them, they say they are more powerful, they are more popular, they are more loved, and they are better than us. Now here you are saying they are malnourished. What are you talking about?
In Uganda, they call that okwekaza.
They say they are more popular, they are more stronger. They even go to America and UK and everywhere in the world saying the masses of Uganda are with us. The masses, they tell the world that all of Uganda want them. And they are so people that they are so loved. Here you are, we are saying we are fighting with malnourished. What language are we speaking? So they are strong in their own way, and we face them as such. Now, the other comment is that NRM wants strong parties. It is not true that we want them weak. I know in some jurisdictions, some leader came out to say, is it my work to build opposition? Somebody said, is it me to build opposition? And should I build for them themselves? But here we are, through IPOD. IPOD as an institution is an institution meant to make sure that parties coordinate their activities, work in a civil way, in a civilized way, and encourage each other to grow and participate. Two, NRM still insists that money should be passed for election commission to give parties, although in a representative capacity, to help them grow. And sometimes there was even voices that NUP, it is that money making NUP very strong, because they get billion and other money. But we said it's okay. So the idea that there could be NRM intention to make other party die is not true. We wouldn't be the same party promoting IPOD, which is an inter-party organization to help other parties grow.
If you don't mind, have you, as a party, because you speak for the party particularly, have you guys withdrawn or reviewed this position of mandatory membership of IPOD before, or mandatory membership and participation before political parties that have got members in parliament?
But I think that was passed in the act already.
But I mean,
it is an act now.
Are you comfortable with that?
Yeah, we are. We are, because you cannot say, as a member of the party in parliament, I want to benefit from that basket, but let me not talk
now
to
a condition
you.
for
Let me
eating.
not talk to you. So we thought that let us be both together in getting what is in the basket, but also discuss. Maybe we shall increase what is in the basket. So we maintain that, and it is a position of law now. The other thing is that while we are fighting and we have lost 3 people at the village level, I am sure there are some parties who are going to persuade people, kindly help us carry our flag, or even pay money, help us in this district, help us get this flag, help us. So that is their business.
So, but could you explain the circumstances under which these 3 people died? Was it a stampede? Was it some kind of violence? What exactly
had
happened?
One, because the circumstance I had one was that an uncle was standing and a person did not line behind the uncle, and the uncle was very enraged. And yet for us, we thought that at this level of getting flag bearer, we thought that is an inside democracy. all the candidates are our candidates. We just want to get one. So we thought that since it is indoor or in-house, we make people line up to show transparency. And I think one uncle said, how could you dare not line behind me? I'm your uncle. And that is what it was.
So if that happens at the village level, then imagine if this was at a higher level.
Yeah, it would. But that's why the lining up is only at the village level, not at other level. We don't have provision for lining up at other level. So, but what I'm saying is it did happen, and it is what we have to manage. We have already cried about the challenges of internal democracy, and we shall see what to do about it. But that also shows the popularity. Second last is somebody saying members of NRM are poor, like wherever it is. We are part of the country. But there are more other values with the members in NRM than mere direct benefit. Of course, we have done intervention regardless of party. This PDM or what, we don't go to the villages and say you are DP, we are not giving you a UPC or no. No, we give everybody the intervention. Now, where our NRM people are poor, yes, they are poor, but we are happy that even in their poverty, they still believe in the ideology. They still see that there are more things than cash. For example, how would they value peace and tranquility? It's commonly going they say these days we sleep. Okay? How do they value the fact that you can leave Koboko and move to Kisoro and you have no problem? Even if you're in Kisoro, you're talking on your phone in Kakwa, who cares? They value that more than cash. So, that is to prove to you that despite party members being financial, not having money, they still believe there are other values they get more than money. Lastly, you said that as a UPC, you could have held military and fought and this. It is on record that UPC had various multiple operations in Luero, led by Ideologue, led by Ogole, and many things. You did not turn over power peacefully. It was a contradiction within yourself.
No, I was
talking, so it is your contradiction.
I was talking about post-NRA after 1985 that if we were to fight back. And I brought that deliberately because I think it should help this conversation since we're discussing politics. That there must be some civility in NRA as a regime to make sure that the political process is free, the legislative process is free, and also that the judicial process is free. That ordinary Ugandan citizens, if they feel dissatisfied with the process inside NRA, there's an internal mechanism to address. And that ordinary Ugandans, if they feel aggrieved about something, they should go to the police and then they should report and the police should go to treat them rightly. And actually, if there's a particular matter that they take to the local magistrate, it should be treated properly with the due regard for it. If anything, we pay these people. Because if you don't do that through a magistrate, people will look for all options.
Short intervention, I guess.
To go ahead and
short intervention, I guess.
But
yes.
But
yeah.
No. Okay. Go.
A long intervention or a short one? Now, I just thought you meant that for you, you did not want to fight, and that is why you handed over power. I just wanted the viewers to know that the internal contradictions in UPC, with the army under the commander-in-chief, who was the president of UPC, had their contradiction and led to disintegration. So it was not a voluntary leaving. So I just wanted the viewers to know
that is also not true.
I just want the viewers to know that.
Indeed, but that's
but about our internal democracy or even alternative dispute resolution for the party or even legislation that it is open. Party is not the end. You can go, we have had people go to court and that is it, and adjudication is made in court.
And we are saying that the judicial process should work and should not work in such a manner that the establishment uses it as another mini prison against the citizens. But very quickly, because I need to say this, Comrade Rich refers to the Luero thing. Luero thing is actually an atrocious thing. Luero thing, we had a last elected government, a democratically elected government in parliament, and when these guys, instead of going to seek the judicial process I'm demanding for, they went to Luero to break people's neck. It was a war of criminality here in Luero. And in any case, Ideologue died in Luero. And Ideologue died in Luero where Ugandans have got the right to ask the circumstance in which their chief of staff died in Luero. So I don't think it's anything about just stamping. The coup in 1985 was a coup. It was not the government that caused collapse. It was a coup. It was a deal between Moses Ali, the Musevenis, DP, and then they went ahead to over. That's why Moses Ali is a permanent thing. So there's a deal between Museveni and Ali, these 80-year-old dubious guys who brought terror to our country. That's what happened. So if they were strong anyway, they should have waited those elections due in December 1980. They didn't wait for elections. These guys didn't wait for elections in December 1980. They brought out guns. Do they want to bring out guns today? No. That's what I'm trying to persuade Ugandans. We shouldn't do that. We should do it properly. And this guy should have the civility, and the humility to recognize and accept what I'm trying to push across.
I just want you to, Major, I don't know if you want to come in or we proceed. Well, now let's focus our attention to the question of the readiness of Ugandan citizens for the 2026 elections. Just how ready are we as a country? How ready are your voters across the political divide again? In terms of political awareness and education, just how much would you say citizens understand their rights and responsibilities and the electoral processes? When it comes to free and fair electoral environment, would you say the environment is entirely free? Don't we have coercion, intimidation, or manipulation? Even looking at what's happening within the parties, NRM right now, as people return their expression of interest forms, we are hearing some of these cases of coercion, intimidation, and so on and so forth. And this is still at party level. What does this mean now when we move to a whole general election? Just how functional are our democratic institutions? Joseph has been talking a lot about the judiciary and its independence or lack thereof. Just how fair are these institutions? How democratic or functional is our electoral commission and all the other institutions that support the democratic processes? And also the respect for human rights and freedoms. I think whenever we have elections, just when we look back at Kawempe North a few months ago, I think the question of human rights was very, very amplified at that time. And these are also concerns that people would like to have addressed as we go into the general elections. Also, when it comes to civic engagement and participation, are citizens actively involved in the political process as we count down to 2026? Are our electoral processes transparent and accountable? Should, say, the incumbent president not win? Shall we see a peaceful transfer of power? I think this is some of the conversations that I would like us to dedicate the next 40 minutes to. Maybe I'll start with you, Robert.
Judith, as we talk about these things, it is something very surprising in Africa and in Uganda in particular, to think that we are going to continue doing things in the same way and we expect different results. If you just flashed back to 2021 when we last had an election, and today, and asked somebody, what has really changed? What has really changed in political parties, in the electoral commission, among the voters, and the whole spectrum of events that is taking us into the elections next year? You would be really very ambitious and very hopeful to think that there is going to be a huge, tremendous result different from the other one of 2021. Number one, when in the first segment, when I talked about how NRA or NRM has been a bully, I was not an apologist to the other political parties. The other political parties seem to have also, in fact, they have given up. They have given up. They are only doing what the Maganda says, mukalukalu tajja busera. That a person who is a little bit he does not get cowed out very easily when he's burnt by porridge, and somebody asks him, what is wrong with you? He says, when I think about my people who died and I'm now taking porridge, I feel so bad. That's why I'm crying. But the real cry will be because of the burn that he has received from the porridge.
Hot porridge.
In fact, if Ugandans were sincere, there was no need to go and compete in elections in 2026. There is no need, because there is no election that is going to take place. There is going to be a selection. The Electoral Commission, when it completed the elections last year, what has it done to sensitize the people and correct the mistakes that were there during that time? Yesterday, I heard the Electoral Commission chairperson, Vyamukama, saying they don't want police to get involved in what they are doing. What have they done to influence the legislation that allows police normally to do what it does in elections? Because up to today, the law still says that elections will be manned by police on invitation of the Electoral Commission. Does he want to say that this time he's going to invite Securico to be the one to guard the election? I don't know. Has he sensitized the people? The Human Rights Commission, which also has the mandate to sensitize people on electoral matters, have they done anything? The only thing you see them is giving press conferences to show how human rights now, who is excelling in the abuse of human rights. Those days it used to be police. Now they are saying it is the army. So is that enough? People in the village even know that in the next few months we are going to have an election? My mother doesn't know. In fact, my mother does not know even that people are being nominated in these places to go and vie. They will only see them there. Then they say, what are these doing? That he wants to be MP. Let him give us sugar and we vote him. They don't know. The political parties, this is the biggest disappointment in this country. The political parties have headquarters, they have everything, but they are every time crying and wanting lullabies from other people to sleep. For example, things which have just happened in this 1 month are deplorable. You saw what happened in the DP delegates conference. Circus. Real circus, where you really see somebody fighting for his meal card. Really crying for his meal card. And he does not have anything. I don't have any hope that the one who won the DP presidency is going to struggle for Ugandans. He doesn't look. He's just struggling for his meal card. And the way the things ended up, there are a few delegates, they cannot even vote peacefully. They cannot count elections. I mean, the votes. At the end of the day, you see police is the one in charge. You would imagine that police is the one running that election. The one who was there running the election looks like a comical person of Amarula who is playing a show or a drama. You don't expect such a person to become a very good alternative of the NRM. Look at the National Unity, is called what? National Unity, what? Nope. Nope is what?
National platform. Yes.
Platform. When we are teaching students about a delegates conference, we tell them that in our constitution, which runs political parties, something, delegates conference normally is a summation of representatives of the people from all parts of the country. And it begins with the grassroots delegate selection, or what you would call representative selection, and it spills up to the top at the national. I heard the other day that NUP was holding a delegates conference, and I was wondering, how did they get these delegates? And in that they pronounced a lot of things, including coming up with a new leadership. Just yes, this one, yeah. Now, how can they blame the NRM? How can they, where are they going now to stand before some of us and blame the NRM? Because They have behaved like the relationship between toads and frogs.
But Dr. Ojambo, just sorry to cut you short, I think we also have to bear in mind the hurdles that NOP has had to jump. Many times when NOP wants to go beyond Kampala, we see all the blockades, security stopping them. They cannot really engage. So under the circumstances, do you think they can actually do much in terms of penetrating all the way to the grassroots and building structures?
Judith, let me give you an example. I don't think that NOP has received the beating that earlier political parties have received. Because you see, this NOP here has just been here for a few years. FDC, for instance, Forum for Democratic Change. This is a party which has been mimed to an extent that even some of its members have been killed by the establishment. You know them, the Musasizis, the many others. But I remember at the time before FDC got the problem that befell it under Nandala Mafabi and the engineer, it used to have delegate conferences. One time I was in a village doing some research in Bunyangabo. And there was some election, and I asked, which election is this? They said, this is FDC election. They are getting people from the grassroots. And I picked interest. I followed up that interest. And if you discover all political parties that have been here, ever since the Political Parties Act was approved in 2005, 2005, it is FDC that has been a credible party where you would see them having a semblance of having their leaders and holding real delegates conference where you would see these delegates coming from all other parts where FDC is found and electing either Kiza Besigye or Mugisha Muntu and so on and so forth at the top here. With all the problems that they were going through, to an extent, things have not changed. The military in Uganda has behaved the same. It is like a chameleon, only that it changes. When it is in green, it looks green. When it is in brown, it looks brown. But it is a chameleon. It is a chameleon. So I don't think that would be an excuse for FDC, for NOP, not to be seen, even having some semblance, even if they pretended, but just going to Kamocha and sitting. This time they didn't sit at Kavule, they sat at Kamocha and sit and they say, we have a delegate conference. Where did you get the delegates from? And these delegates have already put up leadership, starting from the president and so on and so on. I think such things we should talk against them. So there have been even a query. Under which constitution did they carry out this? Because their constitution that they are running on has issues. That constitution of 2014, 2004, which came before the act, is problematic. You will say that the government has gagged them by stopping their process of review. But at the end of the day, we need to see them putting pressure. I have not seen NOP members walk on the streets like FDC and other parties DP used to do. Move on the street to protest, to show that we are not happy with these things. Instead, they are going, sitting in a room, selecting themselves and announcing to us that this is the leadership. So for me, who is an analyst, how do I differentiate you from NRA or NRM? As I end, I think, in my view, many people are not prepared for the next election. And this unpreparedness is what is going to end or to lead us into violence. For me, I still predict, I am not a prophet, but I predict according to what I'm seeing, that we are going to continue having a violent election because people are not prepared. The voters are not prepared to know what they should vote, how they should vote, why they should vote, and if they are to vote, how should they take the results that they receive after announcement? They are not prepared. The candidates, I have told you earlier, that the majority of the candidates do not know even what to do. For example, people who are going there, What infrastructure have they put in place to make sure that at the end of the day, elections go on as planned? That's why they now have to rely on the police to give them a backing here. These people, if you hear a candidate saying that he's under trouble, he has realized that he's not doing very well, so he calls in police. And if he's a state operative, because there are politicians who are state operatives and they don't leave the other, the army really comes in and causes conflict. So I think that the electoral commission, I really feel that this electoral commission, are they, for example, pretesting the systems that they are going to use, or they will come on the day of elections or a few months to elections? For example, the president has insisted, and I keep listening to him very careful, that he wants the electoral commission to remove this manual type of election because people have been using it to rig NRM. Now I get worried. Are they going to continue? Because last time we had both. Because of our unpreparedness, we tried to use electronic machines, they failed. So we used both. And they brought in results which caused us a lot of trouble. For example, can the Electoral Commission tell us, are we going to use a hybrid or we are going to use electronic system throughout? And if so, what are we going to use? For example, in fact, those days we used to get voters card. These days they say the ID is your voters card. Majority of us have expired IDs. Up to date, I don't know where I should go to renew my ID because I got my ID in the place of work. I went to Nakawa the other day. The line was as long as Owino Market. I couldn't sit there a whole day and cry to get an ID. So I really guess that by January, will we have renewed all the IDs, or we are going to continue using expired IDs to vote? And if we use expired IDs to vote, does it has the machine been made to mean that? The other issue is money, electoral money that we are going to use to run these elections. Normally, people look at what is given to the Electoral Commission. But I end up seeing that these elections are very expensive. For example, it has been averaged that for somebody to win an MP ship, you must have 500 million. Now, how are parties going to fund their candidates? I was hearing NRM bragging that from this expression of interest, they have collected 7.3 billion shillings. And for them, they give back to their candidates who have won. They give them money to support them in election, which I normally think that it is just a scapegoat to steal money. Odongo here the Honorable told us that normally the Secretariat does not depend on state funding. I really want to disagree with you, because I didn't
say state funding. I said anything extra. State funding is for all, even other parties receive state funding.
You are going to see colleagues who are there watching during election. People who are in the establishment of government are going to continue using government vehicles to campaign and to do all atrocities, especially those of NRM. Who supports these other people? Who supports these other people in these other parties? Do they have the money to run an election? I don't know. And if they don't, they now go to other means, which sometimes end up into violence. So I think that even the candidates need to be prepared. And that's why I want to encourage Comrade Wich that please don't just bring us anybody who has minimum qualification. Bring us candidates who are prepared to vie for the election, and at the end, that is the purpose of selecting. It's not just to look at people who have minimum qualification and you bring them.
Thank you, Dr. Ojambo. We need to proceed quite faster. George, let me come to you. Do you think, in your opinion, that Ugandans are actually prepared for the 2026 elections, looking at some of these indicators that we've just talked about, and perhaps even those that I've not mentioned?
I think largely, yes. You know, Judith, Comrade Awich, initially when he was making his submission, made something very fundamental. He said that as NRM, and particularly because he's speaking here now as a director within the party, they have made it very clear that allow this to be a political process so that the competition is political. The intervention of other actors should really be when it is absolutely necessary. When it is absolutely necessary. And it should also be to make sure that you come to create a minimum environment for all to enjoy their right to participate in this election. So let this be a political competition. And if that be the case, I think Ugandans are ready for this election. Let me tell you something. I have said severally that NRM, for example, is in a contest. The real opposition to NRM, in my view, is poverty. Okay? And that is why the NRM leadership has made dealing with poverty the primary, you know, they have, the president, for example, has over the last few months, or even the whole years, concentrated more on going up to the up country and mobilizing people to fight poverty. Because you see, once you answer those basic questions, it does not matter how other political actors package their message. The people themselves can see that you are responding to the basics. You are responding to what? You get my point. So, for me, the country is ready. And you know, with the liberalization of our media now, and I want to say thank you to the media in this country. This country has liberalized the media and allowed for the democratization of information. You see, there are so many platforms, there are so many means of communicating, and every single minute, people are consuming information in this country, and that information has allowed this country to be one that is civically competent. To a greater extent, the level of civic competence in this country is incomparable to some countries where there is restrictions in all types of media. Now, in this country, people debate almost everything. Everything. You go to our up-country stations, that's when you will enjoy. You will listen to radio, and most of the people now, because we also have phones, you know, the mobile phone penetration levels are so high. So in these phones, you're going to see those that are having, what do you call them? The phones that, with the high specs, that's one that receive WhatsApps and so on and so on.
Smartphones.
Smartphones. They're very busy. But there are also those ones that are not on smartphones, but have these other basic digital phones. They are on radio. And throughout, they are discussing matters affecting them there, including politics. They are aware how many candidates have already nominated. They are aware when the dates for nomination is going to take place. And they are also aware of what are their priorities. What I am only asking for is the basic minimum environment for them to exercise their right. As long as we can guarantee that right, and I think that is where the conversation is, that do we have the infrastructure? First, do we have the legislation in place? And I think we have sufficient legislation to guide our elections. Even where there were gaps, I think recently there have been amendments here and there, and now we have sufficient legislation to support our electoral process. Do we have the institutions of the state that are supposed to guarantee peace and security? Again, I want to emphasize this. The institutions of the state that are supposed to guarantee peace and security during the period of elections. And that should be the bare minimum that they should be able to provide, because they should give people the liberty to make those choices in the ballot box, because this is political competition. And as a political organization, as NRM, I think the pride that the party has had for a long time is to say we have brought power back to the people, and that people should be able to exercise that power. So we should be the first people to jealously guard, the liberty of our ordinary citizens, so that they are able to exercise, their powers to vote. So Ugandans outside there are excited about this election. They know it's an opportunity for them to vote out those that they feel have not performed to their expectation. They are raring to go. They also see that it's an opportunity for them to elect those people whom they feel are capable of providing leadership. To renew, it's going to be a new mandate effective 2026. So everyone is excited about that. So in terms of the levels of preparation, for now, I think that Ugandans are willing to vote. Ugandans are ready to vote. There is still work to be done, a lot of work, but that is work that we should deliberately, be dealing with going between now and when we start actively, going into the ballot boxes. So yeah, my view is that in terms of our levels of competencies, civic competencies, we have gotten somewhere, on account of our media, on account of the structure of our governance. These days we have so many, we are so detailed. Our leadership goes up to village. And by the way, while we think that we have over-democratized, and while we think that there is too much electioneering, and there are so many leaders that have been elected, actually in doing so, we are awakening the consciousness of Ugandans. That is probably the unintended consequence of having so many electoral offices. Because now Ugandans are alive to the fact that there is something called leadership and somebody must take responsibility for it. And they are beginning to ask the hard questions about how each one of them is performing at different levels. So that is a good thing for the country.
Thank you. So Joseph, I'd like to know your thoughts, of course. Dr. Ojambo here is quite pessimistic. George has some optimism. What do you think is our state of preparation as citizens as we count down to 2026? George says the democratization of information or communication, for that matter, has in a way translates or contributes to civic competence. I don't know if you share same thoughts.
The proliferation of private media, which is a global reality, is not credit to this NRA regime. But to that extent, George is right that we have a lot much more spaces today than indeed we did 10 years ago, certainly 20, but definitely 40, 50 years ago, when we had fairly restricted media, because limited media in that sense. Even then, some of the state media that we had at the time was slightly much more open. I am old enough to know of a newspaper called Ngabo. You guys need to research.
By the way, just for your information, there are countries where you do not have as much media.
I was actually coming to that. Yeah. The relativity question is neither here nor there. And the repressive nature, in terms of the process that we're having today, we know that in some of our neighborhoods, possibly that will not be possible. But that cannot and should not be the unit of measurement of argument. And the issue is how prepared we are as Uganda. And that's why my relativity possibly goes into the context and history. So there is Ngabo, there used to be Ngabo, and there used to be Munasi. What Munasi newspaper used to publish and what Ngabo used to publish, if they were today, they would have been closed a long time ago. You guys ask Andrew Mwenda because I know you made reference to some of these things before you got very cozy to Twitter accounts X. You know, the struggle for political freedom in this country, FDC did reasonably well, but they're not the founders. DP did reasonably well, but they're not the founders. I talk as somebody whose president died in exile, lest viewers forget. My president died in exile after 20 years in exile. My vice president died, Paul Mwanga, almost effectively in prison from zero. My Secretary General, not these new Secretary Generals of Teapot in town. UPC Secretary General in normal times is a serious name. Dr. John Luruza Kirunda died in exile. And I can count many other issues. And so the struggle to literally return this party to pluralist politics, Julie, so this country ban. It saw the North and East ban. It saw Kampala ban. Like Dr. Ojambo said, it saw Kampala streets ban with youths and UPC students being held in Makerere and doors and windows broken, you know, to basically return open political pluralism. That's the struggle for this democratic processes. Unless we forget, we won this, UPC won this, backed by a deep later, but we won this for all the citizens of the Republic of Uganda. The victory that we had in 2004, November, was hope that it would bring in a pluralist space in which political parties and political organizations would compete on the basis of issues and ideas. And we had challenged NRM that if they're worthy of a name, they should stop the cowardice of 20 years, holding others in prison, but then put the kind of conversation that these two guys are trying to make, which is a fair conversation, that this is our track record, test us on this, you know. Point is that they're doing that after starving off other people and making sure that it's only other people's grandchildren who are now competing with the experienced grandparents from NRA. So that's neither here nor there. On the basis of what I saw in 2021, I think I picked it from Dr. Ojambo. The fact that, was it 154 Ugandans died around elections? It's actually amazing, lest we forget that's official.
It's alleged 54.
Alleged 54, is it? Even if actually
Not alleged, confirmed 57. But for us, we feel it was bigger than that.
Yeah. And if you took us back to 1980 general elections, and nobody can tell you how many 5 people died in the course of elections, it will tell you how bad that was. And I can tell you it was generally shocking. And somehow, over a 5-year period, we've simply completely forgotten about the infrastructure challenges we faced. I argued that after Mr. Museveni swearing in, one of the first things we should have done was really to apologize to the citizens of Uganda and say, guys, we know that things may not have happened properly, but we look forward to a possibility that we can have it this better. You know that was one of the elections in which there was no demonstrations or clapping in the streets of Kampala, because it was a fight process, the last election. Now, since then until today, Dr. Ojambo is very right. What is it that has changed? Nothing fundamentally, structurally has changed. NRA has sort of perfected its art of preparedness up to this stage. We don't know what happens over the next 6 months. The rest of the other political organizations, as I said, I don't know, we've discussed it. As far as UPC is concerned, as I say, it's a shame that we are the founders of this debate, founders of this freedom. The people who faced this, we faced it in 1985, 86, 87, 88, 90. Our members were targeted across the country. Across the country, we're targeted. We were targeted up to the other year. Even today, we're still targeted. Our headquarters are surrounded by JAT in plain clothes, people who are whatever kind of stuff. But I'm not quite sure whether you can talk readiness from this perspective. I think where my colleagues are right, there are certain things which I would expect political opposition to be doing outside Kampala, in the grassroots. And I'm not quite sure whether you can blame NRA for them not doing it. There are certain situations that should happen in the Bulgaria. That I'm not quite sure whether that if leaders of alternative opposition like UPC participate in it, they may necessarily be stopped. But I think because of some of the things that has been happening, including particularly 2021, there is an element of fear because I face people, George. And people will tell you, young people will tell you, they don't want to participate. They don't want, by the way, there's a lady I met, a very affluent lady, whom I met within the last 3 weeks. I hope I convinced her not only to register, but to participate, to vote. And I told her that ideally the best political party of today and the future is UPC. But also tell her she would rather go and vote for anybody else, but she must make sure that she participates in the election process. And these are people with their Why? Because they think that associating with the political opposition, is war. And this is an upper middle class Ugandan of reason, and of reason and means. But that's what she's saying, it is war. And then number two, she says, then going to vote at all is a waste of time and a waste of resources. And I'm saying, this is hard. And if you guys see some of the things that I'm trying to struggle around with, Comrade Richie, it's really our responsibility that we don't waste time. It's our responsibility that we wake up Ugandans, so that particularly young Ugandans get involved and participate in the civic space, civic processes. And they're not going to be doing so if they're intimidated. Nor are they going to be doing so when they think they can only do it for money and nothing else but mal and self-interest. I think it's possible that it's not too late over the next 6 months that political parties and organizations, including these new ones, mobilize and organize themselves and be able to put for us on the table what they're really made of. But critically, ordinary average Ugandans who may not necessarily have participated in the election processes before, who may not be thinking about doing so, they should be able to do so today. Finally, Comrade Wich, there is this thing about the register thing, which I think is a critical issue when we talk about elections.
Yes.
I'm told that as of now, is it too late to go to the election register? Is that the case?
Yes.
And now,
you
if it's too late to go to the election register, I don't know. Like for me, maybe I would not have voted. In 1980 general election, that today you turn 18 today and you're completely disenfranchised. I don't see how much sense to make it. With the advance of technology, George, you guys belong to these political organizations. You guys talk to Comrade Museveni because he's Mr. What? Do you know what? In other democracies, including Ugandan democracy and the UPC, parties, the final electoral register is up to date up to 4 weeks, up to 6 weeks. Here, there's no reason why we cannot really. You guys leave these things up to 3 months. I know there's technicalities of printing items, ABCD, but no. What about the graduates that we train? After all, there is Chankwanza, which is a special institution that turns brains into machines. Why don't we be able to do this thing? I think this is something that urgently needs to be reviewed.
Thank you. Thank you, Joseph. We have 10 minutes to go, and I'll give you the microphone now. No, you speak. We can readjust a little bit.
Yeah, I was wondering of.
But may I use the 7?
No,
I was timing
20,
myself.
No.
By the way, I timed myself.
20 minutes.
I timed myself.
And we special time.
I'll try to be brief.
This
I'll try to be brief because Honorable Odongo has answered really pretty what I would have said. He has said it all, and in law I would have said I have nothing more useful to add. I concur with him. But I'll say a few things. Now, about being ready for Uganda for this coming election, sometimes I want to start with an average Ugandan. Say, how about you? Are you ready yourself? And then after that, how about your family, your children? Are you ready? So, what forms readiness? Readiness is in two positions. The state provision of infrastructure and legislation, where infrastructure means money to the Electoral Commission, logistics to the Electoral Commission, security to the Election Commission. Okay? And then on the other side. Now, all these are in place. Information, as he says, as Honorable Odongo said, information is available. So if you start with yourself and go to the other Ugandans, I think we are ready for this election. There was a time when we would hear sentiment from Election Commission of lack of funds, but they are not. Now, even by show of eyes, any corner of the country that you move now, posters have been printed. And we take it for granted. But do you know, if that was not there, there would have arisen a situation where somebody is saying, we have not been allowed to print our posters. But because it is there, we even seem to think no problem would have arisen anyway. Now, if it had arisen, by now you'd be saying, oh, we have been denied chance to print our posters. And that is why sometimes we don't see an achievement until it became a problem. But here it is, we are ready. I start with myself, I start with my family, and I imagine other ordinary average Ugandans, and I examine the logistics there too. People are aware. Now, I still repeat that now that people are aware and people are, the state and government is ready in terms of logistics, I still insist now, not from my own mouth, but General Tafire weighed in on this. General Tafire said that the army should leave police to do it. Of course, no wonder he's the minister for police, but I think he was saying it not to guard his own job, but assessing the tranquility that is there and the civility that he wants it to be. Now, if the military and intelligence have information about some terrorist possible intervention or attack, then they should try as much as possible to preempt from the borders, because many terrorism are from outside. Even if you trace them either coming from Kenya, come from Tanzania, or from Congo. So the army should be vigilant there, so that for us, especially us as a ruling party, where we would be blamed for missions or commissions, we would be blamed because we are the ruling party. We don't want to be blamed, but we think we have the capacity, the capability as a party to run this election with our colleagues to compete fairly. So I still would agree with the Tafire that let us have it civil, and therefore we win squarely and we don't have people complaining about our win. I also like to comment about the readiness on our side is that because of our hard work and because of the less work from our opponents, we seem to be entering this election with a less cohesive position than we had always been doing. Because if you see in the past elections, gearing towards the election, you'd see clearly Kizza just come up. You'd see clearly either who has come up. You'd see clearly a party which has come up. But now, I'm seeing our colleagues, they are around and about, within and among, generally and not particularly. So, that it is. So, this adds on us in our preparedness, that we are better prepared because our friends seems not to be putting their house in order. Now, to this effect, I hope other parties are doing. We're going to have our national conference. We don't call it delegates conference. In our constitution, our diction, our choice of word is a national conference, which will be purely national representation. Karamoja, Kisoro. If you want to see Uganda, come to our national conference. You'll see real Uganda. And also for me, as mandated Director External Affairs, I will call 2 people or 3. One, I will call NRM diasporans to come because our constitution says an NRM branch in a country is equivalent to a district branch. I'll call them and keep them here at the party expense. Also, we're going to call other political parties to come and see our transparency. ANC in South Africa, RPF, CCM, UDA, the Communist Party of Russia, China, any party in America, whichever party. We have a long list of parties we're inviting to come and see what we do. So we're inviting all of them to come and see, to attend our national conference.
You call academics also.
But, oh, that's a good idea, we can. Only that why I have not thought about it, because it is internal. But if I can package among the external, it would be good. But I had not thought about it because my mind was focused on external. including ambassadors accredited to Uganda. We want the ambassadors to come and sit and see how we do business. So apart from the national having Ugandans, we shall also have our foreign friends and comrades to come and see how we do it, so that they see whether we are democratic or not, at least as a party. Also, in our preparation is that we're going to fund our candidates. Take, for example, each candidate, aspirant has been paying 3 million. Now, if you are 4 in a constituency, that is 12 million. Therefore, it means that if you win as a flag bearer, we shall collect from all your friends, give it to you, and then also we shall look for more money and add to you. Because if you gave a candidate, just for example, if you get 30 million, that means you have collected all his own money from his colleagues and even topped up for him. So we shall try as much as possible to fund our candidates. Of course, you can't get enough, but average we shall try to do it. This is part of our organization. Now, to show that Ugandans are actually ready and prepared, another test will be at the attrition rate, the rate at which the incumbents won't come back. Now, if Ugandans were not ready for this election, possibly those incumbents will just go there for the sake and come back. But you will be surprised that those who have not performed, like in the last election, I think, I don't know, what was it, 60% did come back?
More than 50.
More than 50% did come back. And this clearly shows the awareness of the people. That people know and people come and don't. So that will be seen in the rate of attrition. My friend Congress is saying that the preparation of this, there's lack of freedom to the extent that if Uganda newspaper was there by now, it would have been closed. I think we still have papers which operate worse than Uganda. For example, Monitor. Monitor, you see their heading. Everything in Monitor will be piercing. Have you seen?
Are you saying what they publish are lies? There's no fact to what they say, or are you unhappy because of the critical lens that the Monitor uses?
I'm careful with my diction, my choice of word. I said they are piercing, and I've not said I'm not unhappy. Your unhappiness is yours. It is your word, not mine. Me, I said their publication is piercing. So if it is piercing, and then they are there, why not that? Congressman, the latest events should prove us out. The latest events, I want to repeat, that here is Uganda, which is alleged to be so undemocratic and free. A Kenyan lawyer in the name of Martha comes here, gets a practicing, even me, a lawyer in Uganda, do you know how hard it is for me to get a PC? It is so hard, like passing through an eye of a needle. If only MPs go through the scrutiny for which we go through to get a practicing certificate, we would have a very perfect parliament. Now here is a Kenyan who comes, in our alleged non-democracy, she's given a PC to go to military court and civil court to practice. She wasn't treated particularly well there. The same lady goes to Tanzania, our next door, and she's told to stop there at the airport in Kiswahili, and they told Rudi Wuko. Is this the lack of democracy?
Comparing himself with the Pygmies.
So is this the lack? So the democracy is there, everything will go on well, and there's freedom. Honorable Odongo has explained in terms of the mass media, every district in Uganda, 145 districts, has almost 2 radio stations on average. Whether people are on the campfire, garden, everything, and people are talking what they want.
That is true.
Finally,
but no,
to even prove that no, not all countries have taken advantage of that technology. He has said it, that technology is there, but not all countries. So some countries don't allow that, even with the advent of that technology. They don't. I only fear to mention some names, so don't take it for granted. Now, finally, I want to say that further to demonstrate that people are aware and people participate in their election activities. There is even a fear that there's election fatigue, that people have overvote. But if we don't do that, then they'll accuse us of disenfranchising. So we are better off make vote as much as they are, and you're accused of election fatigue, than being accused of disenfranchising, than stopping them to vote. So the country is ready. For us as a party, we are ready, and we only pray that we are given the civil society, the civil environment, and Ugandans choose. And of course, I will request them to choose NRM.
Well, thank you very much. I'll give you each 1 minute to just conclude, starting with you, Robert. 1 minute.
I still insist that Ugandans are not ready, and you will see from the voter turnout, it has been reducing. This time, it will be a struggle to reach 40%.
Thank you. George.
I ask that all citizens should come out and exercise their right to vote, choose the leaders that will represent you very well, and hopefully you will choose those that are on a yellow ticket.
What is it?
That is NRM.
Oh my God.
Yes.
You remember Kawembe was 17%. So you are
Thank you.
going to see.
Joseph.
No, this journey has been a long journey. It's a journey that came from 1985 Bangold stuff. So Ugandans have died for this process. So it's a process that Ugandans need to take very seriously, particularly young Ugandans. And it's a process also that I believe is the only way forward, a democratic process. And however, whichever way we do that, but it can only happen with young people in the lead. Fantastic organizations like yours, Civic Space and others, should not be taken for granted. And that's why, in conclusion, although it's something that I did not mention earlier, Comrade Witch, on possibly a credit to Simon, maybe I'm blackmailing him, Simon Bebakama, my good friend, the chairperson of the Electoral Commission, that he may have watched from the Civic Space television, where we're taunting him that he needed to come out and pronounce himself on the conduct of the security service in the election process, including Kawempe. Amazingly, as reported, he seems to be suggesting that actually as a part of the result of public outcry, and so therefore he's saying security services should stick to their lane. We just hope that we're able to commit him to that process, going on between now and then, that really the Electoral Commission should take charge and the security services are required to participate only when necessary. And Simon can do that, and so therefore also examine his role and his positioning on other political parties and organizations, that all these things are done through and by the rule of the law. Because a very important thing, his job.
Thank you. In 1 minute, Major.
My final comment is that Article 1 of our Constitution says power belongs to the people. The power that is exercised in government emanates from the people. So I call upon the people to go under Article 1 to show your power that belongs to you. Choose what you want, choose who you want. We are already here we have tried, and we shall be moving to explain to you the right people, and we have already said it. Please go under Article 1 to exercise the power that is given to you, and we are sending you NRM candidates.
Thank you very much, Dr. Robert Ojambo, Honorable George Odongo, Mr. Joseph Ochieno, and you, retired Major Witch Paula. Thank you for your insights on the Citizens Chat Show. We've been asking whether Ugandans are ready for the 2026 elections, of course, looking at also the state of preparedness of our political parties. My name is Judith Atim. Thank you very much for keeping it with us here on the Citizens Chat Show. We'll return next week, same time. Until then, bye-bye.